the gut cut. Makes the guitar a lot more comfortable for people who like pie, like me. I really like pie. So that's 3 bodies at what we'd call stage 1 standard. So there's no lumps and bumps around the outside edge, there's no deep scratches, no tear out, and everything is nice and smooth. The next thing I would normally do would probably be, on these, overlay a template on the top and back to mark out where the contours are going to go. So obviously on the back we have a cutaway for comfort. I like to call it a gut cut. Makes it comfy for slightly portly people like me. And on the top we have the arm bevel, which comes down to just below the centre line and kind of sweeps into this curve here. I don't have a template for those to make them nice and even, so I need to make one. What I think I'm going to do for the top is make it so that it's kind of multi-purpose, and I'll probably do the same for the back as well, to be honest. It'll overlay with and match up with the body to these points, and then one of them will probably come further back, and later on it will incorporate the neck pocket and probably control cavity, and the other one will probably have something like the pickup route and where the actual holes for the knobs and the pots need to go. And at some point, when I've got the bridge location dialed in, i.e. when I've got the neck made, I'll also put holes for the bridge pit posts, so that I can at the very least mark them roughly where they need to be, and then I can kind of dial it in by measuring. I would always prefer to measure the bridge posts on each individual one, just because if the neck is fractionally in or out, it can make a big difference, especially when you're using something like a wraparound bridge, which I'm planning on doing on these. So next thing, I think I'm going to make another template, which is, initially I'll do probably the top bevel. I'll make a template that's the same shape as this, and I'll square it off up here, and that will have my neck pocket and, let's say, control cavity. Yeah, that would make sense. So I need to find some MDF or ply or something similar to do that with. So now I can mark on where my arm bevel needs to be, which then means I can actually route the bevel around the body itself and blend it in. Getting the order of things right is a big part of what makes building kind of guitars in general, but building guitars in numbers, a lot easier. So now that I've got this, I can literally line it up on the bodies. It's the same shape because I've used the template, which means I've inset this 10mm because that's what I'm going to do for my bevel. All I need to do is put this over the top, draw this line on, which gives me a nice clean edge to work to, which if I routed the bevel first, I'd have a gap underneath this entire thing and it would be a bit more difficult to line it up. So now I've done this, I'll take all three, draw this line on, then I'll go to the router and I'll route the bevel around the whole thing, because it's easier to blend this into that bevel when that bevel's already there. And then we'll have 3 guitars with beveled tops. And I'll do exactly the same for the access contour on the back, the gut cut. Makes the guitar a lot more comfortable for people who like pie, like me. I really like pie. What was I on about? Oh yeah, and then I'll cut that, or I'll mark that in, and then I can do my round over on the back. So let's get this lined up, marked on all 3, and do some bevels. Perfect. Now to get some rasps. Start with the double cut. Now I haven't marked the depth of this bevel because I'm going to use the first one as a guide to see kind of what feels right. I'm probably not going to take it a vast amount beyond the edge, maybe double the depth of the existing bevel, but obviously it wants to kind of blend in and just see what works. Either way, it's going to be a lot more comfy than a big square edge. So I've reattached the template to one of the bodies because I realised that I got ahead of myself a little bit. Now I routed the bevel all the way around the body, which was fine because I'd marked this in and it all tied together nicely, but it did make it harder to index the template on top of the body. So what I've done is I've gone back, done some measuring, and I've added to this template the pickup route and where my controls are going to go, so all of the important details for the centre line on the top will be on this template to mark out at the very least, if not actually drill and route them before I do the bevel in the future. I'll also add the neck pocket to this template, but at the moment I am aware that I can't do that until I've got a neck made up to make a template from. So I am aware that I will have to add this back on here and cut out the neck pocket at a later stage, but that's the only thing that I now have to wait for. you live and learn. So I'm going to now make a start and route out some neck pockets and mark out some control holes, and it'll actually start to look more like a guitar body, which is quite nice. I've now made a template for the rear of these, and I've learned from my errors on the top, and I've put in the control cavity on this template as well, which means that I can route that in the right place without having to realign the template. So I'm going to start getting the backs done, and then once I've got the belly carve marked in and the cavity rough routed, I might not take it to full depth, because once it's done then I can use the actual cavity itself to run the bearing on. Once that's done, then I can go back to the router table and give the entire bodies a round over, which will make them basically a kind of ready to go body, except for obviously the holes for the strap buttons, for the jack socket and a neck pocket. So using the templates, I've got all three of these bodies to about the same point. We've got pickup pocket routed, we've got the control recesses drilled, bevel, control cavity, comfort carve and round over. And it didn't take that long, to be honest. Once I was set up for each job, I just grabbed the next body and got through them quite quickly. So I think the next thing for these is probably to go to one side and I make a start on the necks, and that's where I'll need to make a few slightly more in-depth jigs and templates